Chapter 11 Witch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shasta didn't know what Maury was thinking, she only knew that she followed the merchant ship into the town of Siggy and stayed here for 3 days, but she still had no results. Shasta was a little anxious. She said to Maury, "I don't care what the Lord here is doing. I can't waste time here. If you still can't find it, I'll find it." Maury shook his head subconsciously. No, you can't be exposed. This will implicate me. Shasta said, "The church's hand has not yet reached here, and no one will think that you have anything to do with us. That won't work either. Siggy town is so big, and the probability of you being exposed is too high. In recent days, only my caravan has entered Siggy town. Do you think I'm a fool?" That the two had a heated argument. Maury was very confused. This was not the first time that Shasta had proposed this. The identity of this stubborn guy was extremely sensitive, and he had never considered his situation. Although Shasta was right, the probability of leakage was extremely low, but it was possible. Once this matter was exposed, it would be irreparable, and it would even implicate the family behind him. Shasta said, "Do you think the nobles have a good relationship with the church? The descendants of the Grand Duke of Split Armor will not leak secrets to the church." Maury knew that the Grand Duke of Split Armor had a bad relationship with the church, but this was not the reason why he supported Shasta to take risks. The latter could just leave without a fight, but he had to bear the price, no matter how low the probability was. Maury said, listen to me first. I am not completely without gain. I think she may not be in Sig Town." Shasta frowned, waiting for Maury's follow-up words. "Amethyst can sense your power, but I have walked all over Sig Town and did not find any abnormal reaction from Amethyst." "Then she is most likely not in Sig Town, most likely exposed. You think she is still alive in this land, then she can only escape into the mountains. This matter is not difficult to speculate. There are only 2 possibilities for the opportunity to enter the mountains. One is that she took the initiative to leave the human settlement and live with wild beasts. The second is that she was exposed and had to leave here. The first possibility is unlikely. Even if you have a strong power, it is difficult to escape from the dangerous forest alone, let alone live alone. So Maury thinks it is the latter." Shasta frowned and said, "If that's the case, then this matter should be a big deal, and it's impossible that no one knows about it." She felt that a powerful force was exposed, and the scene should not be small, and no one would know about it. Maury asked, "Is there a possibility that only a few people know about this?" Shasta had to admit that this situation was not uncommon. Not all powers are destructive, or in other words, only the destructive power is rare. The only thing Shasta can be sure of is that she is still alive. According to Maury's information, there is no news of missing girls in Sage Town recently. If that is the case, then the girl is very likely to have fled into the mountains a long time ago. This is a very bad thing, Maury said. If Roman Liegia is a person with a strong desire for control, he should help us find the girl. Shasta's pupils shrank suddenly. "What did you do?" Maury said truthfully, "I mentioned the residence in the mountains to him. In Siggy Town, only Roman Liegia can find her, and we outsiders can't know the specific situation in the mountains." Shasta's eyebrows stood up, and he cursed, "You self-righteous idiot, how do you know that Roman Liegia won't do anything to her? You were just saying that the Liegia family would not help the church." Shasta's forehead veins burst out, and he gritted his teeth and said, "That doesn't mean he has no hostility towards us." Maury was also furious. "Otherwise, if there is not enough manpower, are you going to go into the mountains alone to find your companions? Can you find them? If you die in the mountains, will my caravan wait for you here forever?" Shasta stood up suddenly. Maury immediately took a step back and kept a safe distance from her. He pretended to be calm and said, "What are you going to do?" "Humph." Shasta snorted coldly, bypassed Maury, and left the cabin. Maury's scalp was exploded. He quickly followed Shasta and asked quickly, "Don't tell me you are going to negotiate with him. The nobles will never accept this. You are not qualified. He will only think you are insulting him." Shasta walked without stopping, wrapped in a black robe, and left the merchant ship. She said coldly without looking back, "I don't believe in the nobles. I will find the child before then and take her away from here. The church is chasing you everywhere. If you are exposed, the Lord here will know that you are not a local and then contact me. On the contrary, if you don't expose yourself, even if Roman Lieja finds your companions, when he finds out his identity, he will know that the child is just a poor little girl. The probability of her survival is very high. Mori chased Shasta, trying to persuade this stubborn guy. Shasta waved her hand back, and thick smoke emerged from her hand, turning into a wall of fog. Mori stopped with a helpless look on his face, and shouted, "I will only wait for you here for 2 days. Whether you come back or not, I will leave. Are all these damn witches so bad-tempered? You deserve to be reduced to this state." He kicked hard at the stone by the river, and soon a mask of pain was put on his face. Night fell quickly. The residents of Sig Town fell asleep in anxiety. A figure shrouded in smoke entered a farmhouse in Sig Town. This is the most common hut building in Sig Town. The cloud of smoke came to the sleeping farmer, emitting a faint smoke, and asked in a voice like a bewitching, "Where is the witch of Sig Town?" The man slept more deeply on the thatched bed, mumbling in his dream, "I don't know." Shasta was not discouraged, left here, walked forward a few dozen meters, and entered the second house. "Where is the witch of Sig Town?" "What witch?" In the early spring night, the moonlight was like water. On the dirty and smelly road, Shasta passed through the gathering place of Sig Town and asked many people. She didn't notice that in the farmhouses she passed by, there were farmers who were tossing and turning and not asleep. Suddenly, they heard the sound of the door opening next door. They looked curiously and saw a horrible scene. A strange smoke was moving, like a monster from hell in the legend, and it would enter a farmhouse from time to time, as if sucking their souls. The discoverer widened his eyes and subconsciously covered his mouth with his palms. He didn't dare to breathe, for fear of attracting the attention of the strange smoke. Shasta's search pattern is interval query. After querying more than a dozen households, she found nothing. When she was ready to look for more and give up if she couldn't find it, she entered a hut. "Where is the witch of Sig Town?" "Guile." The skinny old farmer muttered in his dream. The answer was irrelevant. Shasta suddenly became energetic. She knew there was a clue. "Good luck, Mori is really a waste." "Where is Guiler?" "Guiler, the Lord is here to arrest you." "That damned merchant called the Lord to arrest you." Shasta knew that her ability could make mortals fall asleep and reveal secrets in dreams, but dreams are not logical, and Shasta didn't know what the other party dreamed about, so she had to analyze the answer. "So, did the witch named Guiler escape to the mountains?" Shasta sighed in his heart. "Who are you to Guiler?" "No, no, no. That's not my daughter, that's an evil witch. Master of the church, please have mercy and don't burn us to death." Shasta frowned and repeated, "Where is Guiler? Where is Guiler?" That she repeated this sentence many times, and finally got a clue from the old-looking farmer in front of her. "I don't know." Shasta clenched her fists. She spent so much energy and finally found Guiler's family, but this guy didn't know anything. She was very disappointed. Just as she was about to leave, she found a woman sleeping next to the farmer. She should be Guile's mother and the wife of Guile's father. In addition, there were 4 children sleeping in the house, who looked 10, 7, 4 years old, and a child about 2 years old sleeping in the woman's arms. After Shasta looked at the woman and the child, she shook her head and left the house. After she left, the dozing woman suddenly opened her frightened eyes. When she sat up and wanted to wake up her husband, she found that she couldn't wake him up. "Don't shake him, he's in a deep sleep." A faint voice came from behind. The woman was stiff all over. She turned her head and saw a smoke standing on the ground, and a pair of bright red eyes in the smoke were quietly staring at her. The peasant woman was so frightened that she almost fainted. She screamed with a distorted face. "No! You devil! Don't hurt my child!" The smoke suddenly came closer and asked in a bewitching voice, "Where is Guile?" Chapter 12 The Price of 20 Oxen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, at dawn, the agricultural officer Moore came to Roman's manor at full speed. He found Roman by rolling and crawling. "Master Roman, something bad has happened. A devil appeared in the town of Stur last night." At this time, Roman stood in front of a large and neatly cultivated field. He admired the neat rows of furrows and ridges. The soil was moistened by the morning mist. The more he looked, the more pleasing it was, until the pig-killing scream sounded. Roman frowned immediately. Is it a witch? It's a witch. Magic can't do this. Even if it can't last so long. Only witches have this weird and unpredictable spell. After learning the details, Roman called Green and Aaron over and deduced the main cause of this phenomenon together. Speaking of witches, we have to mention the church. This religion that believes in gods has a very special position in this land. The king, the nobles, and the church together constitute the power class of this era, but the relationship between the three is very subtle. The nobles obey the king submits to the church, and the church is very wary of the nobles. Most of the power of the church is in Sinno. They not only control the clergy with healing abilities, but also have powerful armed forces, for example, the Pope's Knights Templar, the Cardinal's Demon Hunter Knights, the Inquisition Knights and many other armed organizations. The armed forces and faith bonus allow the church to collect tithes from the entire land. Tithe refers to 1/10 of the national income. Even so, Roman has never seen the Grand Duke of the Split Armor make any compromise with the church. The Black Iron Kingdom is the most powerful country on this land. The three Grand Dukes control nearly 40% of the military power and territory of the Black Iron Kingdom. They shook their heads at the church at the same time and never paid tithes. Of course, this does not mean that the peasants in the Black Iron Kingdom live more comfortably than those in other countries. The nobles and the church are similar. They are both oppressors. They will only leave the peasants with a lingering surplus of food, and then take away most of the food without mercy. Facing a hungry gluttonous beast, even if more food is grown on the ground, the farmers can only stay at the stage of not starving to death. The three Grand Dukes refused to pay taxes, but the king of the Black Iron Kingdom paid tithes instead. In Roman's opinion, this is a very interesting phenomenon. The boss pays money to the church, but the three big bosses under the boss sneer at the church, which has quite complicated historical reasons. Let alone sneer. If the army of the Holy See dares to take a step out of Sinno, it will also be attacked by the three Grand Dukes. As the remote territory of the Grand Duke of Split Armor, there is no church stationed in the town of Stur, and the church has no intention of preaching here. If there is a church, Roman can only deal with it privately. The emperor is far away, so what is there to fear? Let's get back to the point. Magic is a kind of supernatural power, but magicians need special training. Magicians in this land are basically extinct. Only some wandering peoples can master superficial magic, call themselves magicians, and use performance talents to make a living. Witches are natural casters, and all women have a very small chance of awakening the power of witches. The church regards witches and magicians as the source of disasters and unclean filth. Therefore, the church's demon hunting knights have been hunting witches and magicians for a long time, causing countless tragedies. These things do not involve the interests of the nobles, so the nobles don't bother to care whether the witches are persecuted. The witches' spells are considered by the Knights of War to be a trick of pretending to be gods. In the eyes of the Knights of War, even a mortal can kill a weak witch by sprinkling salt and a dagger. This phenomenon is impossible for the Knights of War. Witches are not worth paying attention to at all. However, the church seemed to have some terrible obsession with witches. Once a witch was found, not only would the witch be burned to death, but the witch's family would also be purified, and they claimed that the evil witch had polluted the body of the family through blood ties. When Roman was 10 years old, he witnessed the church burning a witch to death. It was a witch who awakened in the territory of the Split Armor family. The Grand Duke of Split Armor refused to pay the tithe, but for some reason he did not object to the church catching witches in his territory. Even if the church wanted to burn the witches in public, Roman was very curious about this, so he went to take a look. He saw the burning stake, and black smoke rose above the flames and floated into the sky. Like the devil's grin, a powerless woman was tied to the stake. In the burning fire, she raised her neck high, her face was covered with dust and black smoke, her hair was disheveled, and her body was burning with high temperatures, but the screams filled with pain and despair were all drowned out by the crackling sound of the wood fibers breaking, until everything collapsed and turned into ashes. That scene brought a great shock to the young Roman, as if something in his heart was broken. That's not a devil, just a witch. At the dinner table, the butler Seth brought breakfast. Roman signaled that Moore could sit down. There were no rules here, and Green and Aaron started eating. Seth could have been at the table, but this old-fashioned man would only stand beside him, not eating fresh delicacies, but eating leftovers. At Roman's invitation, Moore had to sit down cautiously, and then asked, "So, sir, how do you plan to deal with this witch? Do you want to inform the church?" There is no church power in the town of Stur, but Moore believed that as long as the group of fanatics knew that there was a witch here, they would not care about this short journey of 1,000 miles, and would also give a reward of 10 gold coins to the informer. That's the price of 20 oxen. Roman glanced at him. Why deal with her? Why inform the church? She was just passing by. Moore was speechless. This is the border of the Black Iron Kingdom. There is no place more remote than Stur town. There is actually a witch passing by here, my noble lord. Do you believe your lies yourself? Moore believed it. Yes, you are right. Roman asked again. It didn't cause panic. Moll said, no, 2 poor ghosts witnessed her figure. They were not cursed by evil. I asked them to shut up, and I checked the situation in Sage Town. No one was missing or injured. Roman nodded and said, then don't worry about it. This witch seemed to be looking for someone in Sage Town, but it doesn't matter. Roman doesn't care about the witch's origin and purpose, as long as it doesn't hinder him. How else to find it? Do you want to turn Sage Town upside down? It is said that if there is amethyst, holding this extraordinary crystal and approaching the witch, special visions will appear, because amethyst has the power to illuminate evil, but Roman didn't have amethyst, and he didn't have the time. After breakfast, he took Green and Aaron, Seth and Moore to Sage Town. Chapter 13 2,000 Acres of Land. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the chill of the early morning dissipated due to the rising sun, Roman also arrived at Sigi Town. The people had been waiting in front of the common land for a long time. Roman had no intention of giving a lecture today. When he saw the residents' odd expressions and gentle eyes, he knew that they had surrendered. The more ignorant they are, the more they must be restrained by tough means, otherwise it would be easy to cause trouble. Roman got off his horse and asked Moore to move out. Part of this year's grain, he planned to plant spring wheat, which was also a continuation of the planting habits of Sigi Town. About 15 to 20 kilograms of seeds should be planted per acre, but Roman wanted to increase the sowing rate to more than 30 kilograms. This must be done for spring wheat, and the sowing amount must be increased, otherwise the yield will not be high. In the previous life, 1 acre of land could cultivate 50 kilograms of seeds and produce 1,000 kilograms per acre, because the cultivated land was fertile, with sufficient fertilizer and suitable climate. Don't even think about it in this era. Roman upgraded, planting, to level 2, unlocking a lot of basic agricultural knowledge, and knew that the most common method of seed screening was soaking in salt water, but in the conditions of Sage Town, salt was a luxury, and it was impossible to use salt water to select seeds. At least not before he found the salt mine, so Roman had to throw mud into the wooden barrel and blend the mud into the water to achieve the same effect as salt water, but the disadvantage was that it needed to be stirred constantly. After adjusting the mud-water ratio, he asked 2 farmers to take turns to stir. His approach was just to give a standard template and let others follow his method. Because there were too many seeds to be soaked, it was far from enough to rely on just one wooden barrel, and it was better to build a huge pool. It was just that this confusing approach made others quite surprised. Roman did not explain. When Moore came over and asked carefully why, he got this answer from Roman. Don't ask why, you don't deserve to know. You are just farm tools, and farm tools don't need to understand why their owners swing them like this. Roman believed that any explanation was redundant before the effect appeared. As a lord, does he have to go through the trouble of explaining scientific planting to a group of ignorant medieval peasants? Roman's expression was quite calm, and his red eyes were very cohesive. Moore began to sweat again. He found that he had no resistance to the seemingly calm but domineering lord in front of him. Roman made an inference based on the harvest data of Sigi Town. The total cultivated land area of all residents in Sigi Town and its villages last year was about 10,000 acres, which made Roman a little dazed. Just making a preliminary calculation almost burned Roman's head. Many of them were scattered cultivated lands, and they were separated by forests, grasslands, hillsides, swamps and other areas that could not be cultivated. Of course, those cultivated lands were not all cultivated lands, and some of them were not taken care of. but only sown with grain seeds. In Romans' eyes, can the cultivated land that the residents of Siggy town think of be called cultivated land? Don't insult cultivated land. That is clearly a large piece of wasteland. Before the soil is improved, it has no real effective output value. According to the mapping of the real land in Story of Life, Roman will prepare to mark out a 2,000 mu fertile land, which just corresponds to the nearly 2,000 people in Siggy town. This is a rectangular land with a length of about 1.3 kilometers and a width of 1 kilometer. This is a large-scale collective planting movement, with 60,000 kilograms of seeds alone. Then he mobilized all the rest of the people to collect all the feces that could be found in Siggy town and its surroundings. When Roman estimated the cultivated land, he once thought that the total land cultivated by the residents of Siggy town was likely to reach more than 30,000 mu, and even 40,000 mu was not impossible, because the fertility of the land is limited. The land planted this year will not be planted next year, and it will be left fallow until a few years later when the fertility of the land naturally recovers and continues to be planted. This is also the reason why Siggy town wants to build a village somewhere else, because the land is vast and sparsely populated, and the land area is too vast, and it takes a lot of time to travel a day. A single settlement cannot accommodate a large population. Otherwise, staying in one place for a long time and overdrawing the fertility of the land is equivalent to being exploded by the mushroom of destruction, which will cause devastating consequences. Roman wants to use feces to ferment fertilizer to improve the soil, abandon most of the wasteland, and turn a small part of the raw land into mature land. In the future, there will be a great demand for fertilizer, and even if all the feces in the town are found, it may not be enough, so Roman also has to collect rotten thatch, straw, dead grass, and silt, and throw everything that can be decomposed into it. There are many ways to make fertilizer naturally, and the shortest one takes half a month. There are a lot of preparations for farming in the early stage, or farming itself is a tedious and long task. At least don't think about sowing before the manure is made. If you want to do your job well, you must first sharpen your tools. Roman plans to complete the preparations for spring plowing in the shortest 20 days and the longest 30 days. If he didn't intervene, could the farmers in Siggy town clean up all 10,000 acres of land in a month? You know, with the addition of the variable of the Lord's manor, that is, an additional exploiter, the burden on the farmers in Siggy town has become heavier. If they don't quickly plant 10% more harvests, people will starve to death this year under high taxes. In this way, except for the farmers who screened the seeds, most of the laborers were driven to pick up manure. Roman didn't do much, but half of the morning had passed in the blink of an eye. Roman looked at the sun and called More over again. He said to More, "You need to find 80 peasant women and prepare enough rations for everyone, including slaves. Each person should have half a pound of dry food, 3 slices of bread as thick as a knuckle, a bowl of oatmeal porridge and mixed vegetable soup, and a lot of clean water boiled by the fire. This is my lunch, and I won't allow anyone to deduct this ration." More was stunned. "Is what you are saying a human language? Where does the ration come from? What do you mean by lunch you also have to eat? You noble lords eat this, so what do you want me to eat? What do you want those farmers to eat? Are you going to rebel?" More hesitated to speak, but had to nod under Roman's gaze. Although the farmers in Sigg town were starving every day, Sigg town really did not lack food. As an agricultural officer, More would sell surplus grain every year, otherwise he would have no money to buy oxen. Who do you think would be the one to cut off the leaks if he completed primitive accumulation by relying on agriculture alone? Roman would not ask about this matter, and More did not dare to say it. This was a tacit understanding between them, and the previous accounts were written off. It was not a good thing for More to be too fat. He should lose some weight, otherwise Roman would have to help him lose weight manually, and he could lose the amount of a pig's head at a time. He roughly calculated that there were about 1,100 to 2,000 farmers and slaves with working ability, including both adult men and women. This number was obtained by excluding children under 15 years old and the elderly who could not move. Roman gestured and said, "In the future, there will be such a meal at noon every day, and no one is allowed to go home. If there are children and elderly people who cannot walk at home, bring them out to eat, and then leave all the children to the care of the 80 peasant women who cook. This will be done every day in the future. You must inform everyone about this as soon as possible. Chapter 14. Do you want to disobey my orders? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Siggy Town has an agricultural officer, 16 stewards, and 30 guards. Those stewards can only understand and convey superficial laws. They have received no education and only have basic management abilities. The guards are semi-off-the-job people and the source of order and stability in Siggy Town. Roman felt that Maul would not let him down, so he rode his horse with confidence and drove the group of lamb-like ignorant children back to the manor. Roman's manor was named Origin Manor by him. It takes nearly 20 minutes to walk from Siggy Town to Origin Manor, and only a few minutes to ride a horse, before Roman left. In the morning, he told Bob that he would make 300 more rations for noon, and gave Bob the command of all the maids and male slaves in the manor. This was the case on the first day, and from then on. Relaxed, apart from studying, these 300 children can also afford most of the labor services at Origin Manor. If you don't understand, you can learn it. Once you learn it, you will understand it. If you don't obey, you can beat it until you obey. Roman asked himself, not being harsh on them. Now is the land reclamation stage. Due to spring plowing, he has basically filled up all available manpower. He called over the 2 clerks from the manor. One is called German and the other is called Hans. They come from the city school of the Grand Duke of Cracked Armor. This world has basic educational institutions, not to mention the churches, seminaries and monasteries. Children of princes and nobles acquired knowledge through court schools. The knight class also has a corresponding education system. However, most knights do not pay attention to cultural knowledge. These warriors only need to be literate and understand orders. Green and Aaron have been following Roman since they were young, and both of them are qualified to work as civil servants. But it is a special case. Finally, there are the middle class such as merchants and gentry, who obtain knowledge through urban schools, mainly involving reading, writing, arithmetic and business knowledge. It's barely considered half a vocational school. The 2 clerks recruited by Roman came from such a school. Although they were civilians, they came from wealthy backgrounds. They are the second sons or illegitimate sons of a certain merchant or gentry class. They will have to support themselves in the future without any assistance from their families. Roman also paid a considerable price to find these 2 clerks. Opening up the wilderness is an arduous task. Roman offered a fee of 1.2 gold coins per year and paid 3 years' salary in advance, so he signed a 10-year contract. This employment price is not cheap, it is 1/2 higher than the same period. And salary is only the main part of their income, in addition to which they can also receive in-kind compensation. A warrior knight who owns more than 1,000 acres of land, including fighting and robbery, can only earn an average of 10 to 20 gold coins per year, but this does not include daily consumption. Living a good life is considered a good life if you can save 1 gold coin every year. Most knights without territories have difficulty even supporting themselves, and they cannot repair their equipment if it breaks. Roman said to the 2. Listen, German, Hans, I need you to teach those children every day, the same way your teacher treats you. Be patient with them, start with math, then literacy and writing. German suddenly said, Sir, I followed you to this land not to become a teacher. German hoped to become the same position as the agricultural officer, such as judicial officer, internal affairs officer, and then manage the estate, instead of leading those dirty farmer kids to play charades. Do you think so too? Roman noticed that the 2 of them were standing side by side, and he turned his attention to Hans. This somewhat thin young man nodded slightly. His grandfather was a judicial officer for a certain great lord, helping the nobles to formulate laws, impose legal sanctions on any peasants who triggered the laws, and improve the power of rule. But on Roman's side, they have only conducted a census during this period. It was just a boring arithmetic game with no chance to show off its skills. They come from the middle class, so they hope to make progress and get positions that will benefit future generations. They agreed to Roman's invitation and came to this place far away from society. Before coming, Roman promised that they would work on the land flowing with milk and honey, and said that their social status would be greatly improved in the future. This almost designated them as the future managers of the manor. On the other hand, they feel that they are employed by the nobility, the elite in the city, and they are completely different from the children of farmers. As a result, now he was kicked into the dirt by Roman, living among the poor, with no hope of improving his class. So you are going to disobey my order? Roman's words turned cold. Hans swallowed, took a deep breath, and he didn't know where the courage came from. He puffed up his chest and said, "We have the right not to execute unreasonable orders. If Lord Roman insists, I will file a lawsuit with the royal court. The king's jurisdiction is superior to yours as lord." Under Roman's increasingly terrifying sight, his voice became smaller and smaller, so that after all the protests disappeared, Roman's eyes were more intense than ever, like a burning flame. It was a terrifying edge. The sharp feeling, every time Roman stared at one of them, that person would feel like a light on his back. Roman said, "I hire you at a price higher than the market price. Don't talk about any of your rights in front of me. Your commission is enough for me to order you to do these things." In these calm words, the two people deeply felt a kind of quiet power, like the sea before the storm, and on the surface it was calm, but this omen was enough to make them tremble. Even if they died in this ghost place, their families would not get any news in 3 to 5 years. "You have to work for me after signing the contract. You have to obey your master. Isn't it?" Seeing the two people nodding tremblingly, Roman's expression eased a little. "Don't think too highly of yourself, don't overestimate my patience with you, and don't try to question my decision, otherwise I will execute you directly." Roman walked through the two people, and the last sentence he said when he passed by them seemed to be sticky with blood between his teeth. This was not an empty talk. Roman came to the town of Stur. He saw the farmers who picked up dung came back at this time and began to line up to serve rice. Roman glanced at the pile of manure. In one morning, more than 10 tons of manure should have been collected, and more has not been transported yet, not only human manure, but also cow, horse, sheep, pig manure, etc. are all included. A strong working ox can produce 20 to 30 kilograms of manure every day, and these decomposed manure has a strong effect on improving soil, but this is far from enough. Roman needs at least 100 tons of fertilizer to meet the most basic needs. However, the manure before humus only stinks. Roman is very satisfied with Moore's efficiency. Some details that he did not arrange, Moore can also do well. On the public land, tableware, tables, chairs and benches looted from the farmhouses in Siggy town are placed. They are used uniformly, otherwise it is impossible to meet so many people eating at the same time. Behind is a simple fire pit made of stones, on which are placed pottery pots and pots that are still cooking. After Roman got off his horse, he walked over directly. As soon as he approached, he smelled a strong stench. The farmers who had been collecting manure for the whole morning were also covered with stench, so that this open-air canteen was like a public toilet, but Roman's face was normal. This was nothing. He would have to deal with the pile of manure himself later. Wherever he passed along the way, farmers kept making way for a wide road, looking at him with fear in their eyes. The new lord did not redistribute the land to them, nor did he say that he would increase taxes, let alone when they would start farming. This made them feel uneasy and very anxious, because now was a good time to farm the land and they could not delay. But Roman's attitude was very tough, and they had no choice for the time being, so they could only wait and see. But the quality of the food provided at noon also shocked them. Could this be the legendary last meal after execution? If it were normal times, these things would be enough for their whole family to eat for a day with other supplementary foods. Chapter 15. It shouldn't appear on this land. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman came closer and took a look at the food, and found it was pretty good. The dry food was beans and grains, the black bread was bran bread, the viscosity of the oatmeal porridge was also very high, there was still water boiling in the pottery pot behind. Deacon Seth had prepared food for him. Just as Roman had said before, this lunch today was also what he wanted to eat. Roman ate very quickly, and the black bread tasted very bad, but he swallowed it directly into his stomach as if he had not chewed it. While other farmers were still enjoying the food, Roman took Moore to the dung hill and started to ferment the fertilizer. Moore's face was pale, because the strong stench was floating here, and the dung water was flowing everywhere, which made him almost cry, and Roman also frowned. His stomach was constantly twitching, and he almost vomited the lunch he had just eaten. Relying on his strong control over his body, he suppressed his instinctive disgust and aversion, picked up the tools and walked towards the pile of manure. Then, after nearly 2 hours, he finally made a standard flat compost pile, and finally sealed it with wet mud to ferment it at high temperature inside. if everything goes well, it will be successfully decomposed in half a month, and there will be no odor at that time, only a lighter ammonia smell, and it will become fertilizer completely, but it won't work now. When Roman left there, the manure splashed on his body and trouser legs. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was a little purple. He took a shower as soon as possible, washed himself clean, and then changed into clean clothes. When Roman sniffed his arms and palms, his brows frowned slightly. He felt that he was in a taste. This smell might not dissipate for a while. Then, Roman called more and told him that all the manure should be made according to his standard steps. Any farmer who does this work can get an extra reward of 2 kilograms of wheat. This step is not complicated, but it is too disgusting. It is a blow to both the body and the mind. Roman felt that his mentality was as tough as a rock and his spirit was as strong as steel, but in the end, he still couldn't do it and was disgusted. More thought that the group of farmers could do this even without rewards. He felt that Master Roman had never been exposed to this kind of thing since he was a child, just like the worst state when he got carsick for the first time. And the group of low-level farmers were not unacceptable to this kind of work. They had long been accustomed to this stench. Who doesn't have a few piles of feces at home? But Moore looked at Roman, whose face turned from purple to blue, and he couldn't say this. Roman attached great importance to this matter and asked Moore to execute it as soon as possible. What else can be said? The Lord has made such a sacrifice. If he can't do it well, then Moore can only imagine his future life in the pigsty, so he quickly arranged it. Roman went to do something else. He first went to the livestock shed, observed the situation of the oxen and farming tools, and then called the blacksmith in Stir town. The blacksmith was called Lux. He appeared in front of Roman soon after hearing the summons. He was a middle-aged man with thick curly hair, a beard, and a lot of chest hair. He wore an open-front sweatshirt. He was quite strong, especially his arms, which were like iron hoops. These craftsmen who mastered specialized crafts had a high social status and a very good living environment. You are Lux? Yes, sir. Lux put his hands together on his abdomen and answered respectfully. Roman treated Lux very well. He attached great importance to the meaning of these professions. Roman asked again, did you make the farming tools in Sig town? Some were brought by merchants, and some were made by me, but I am usually only responsible for maintenance, sir. Roman frowned and narrowed his eyes. He looked at the iron plows again, bit his fingers subconsciously, and then turned his head to spit with an unpleasant look. How is your business in Sig town? Not very good, sir. Lux said, the blacksmith shop's demand for iron is self-evident, but it does not have the ability to smelt it independently. It can only purchase primary raw materials such as iron ingots and iron blocks from the outside world, and then Lax will forge them according to the needs of Seg town. However, the economic situation of Seg town is very bad. Simply put, it is too poor to consume iron products. Only a small number of farmers have iron farm tools at home. This phenomenon is very normal. In this era, steel is a scarce commodity. Most of the iron produced is used to make various military equipment, followed by the daily life of the nobles and the royal family, and then the merchants and gentry class are also in urgent need of iron, and finally there is very little left for the peasant class. The agricultural official has a very high status in Seg town. He controls most of the oxen and most of the iron farm tools. His worth alone is stronger than everyone in Seg town. Roman asked Lax, how many iron ingots do you have? Only 200 kilograms. Lax was embarrassed. He felt that Roman might confiscate his property. This is all his property, the property of the only high-level profession in Siggy town, more valuable than 8 oxen. Roman thought for a moment, then he squatted down and drew a schematic diagram of an iron plow on the ground. Can this type of plow be made? Lax was very surprised and looked at it carefully, feeling a little uncertain and curious. Roman described the specific data of this iron plow to him. Lax estimated in his heart based on his experience and was surprised. This big guy may consume more than 30 kilograms of iron. Moreover, it not only needs iron, but also wheels, so we need to find a carpenter. There are many carpenters in the town of Stur, but only Carpenter Vic can make wheels. Roman reduced the materials required for this heavy plow as much as possible. He frowned when he heard this. I know, you come to forge this kind of thing, and I will pay you the corresponding fee. Lax hurriedly declined, saying that Roman only needed to pay the cost. He looked at Roman's face and said hesitantly, "But, Lord, the masters of the church said that everything is given by God and should be kept as it is. If you can't move, hell is ahead." The church has a far-reaching influence in this land. Even in a remote place like Stjur town, it still has a huge influence. This sentence means, for any artifacts and technologies, they are given by God, and the human race must maintain the status quo, otherwise they will fall into hell. It's okay to let farmers pick up manure. After all, no one knows what Roman is doing, but Lux could tell at a glance that what Roman asked him to build was a new type of plow, which violated the church's doctrine. Roman heard this, so he stood up and said calmly, "Then let their God say this to me in person." Lux was a little overwhelmed when he heard this arrogant blasphemy and the arrogant attitude that hinted at disrespect for the gods. Roman turned a blind eye. He wanted to shatter all the ideas of the residents of Stjur town and make them obey him. What is the church? Bang bang will give you 2 punches and you will be honest. Roman continued, "This thing is very important. It must be made as soon as possible. Take me to your shop and call the carpenter." Under Roman's urging, Lux had to lead the way. Roman followed, frowning, and looked back at the iron plow next to the ox for the last time. It was very strange, really strange. The strange thing was the style of the plow. Roman had seen the land of the split armor family and the land of Stjur town. The two are located in different places, but the soil structure is roughly the same. That is, this piece of land is basically in the same ecological environment. This piece of land has a high water content, is too moist, and is full of clay. When the planting skill was upgraded to level 2, Roman's understanding of soil became more profound. As the name suggests, turning the soil up means turning up the surface soil to make the soil loose. Compared with hard beds, most crop seeds prefer to sleep on soft beds, although they can also turn the soil with iron plows. The plows are very light and can only scratch a shallow layer of the ground, and cannot plow deeply. In other words, it is actually useless to use it to plow the land. At most, it can only increase the yield by 50%, which is also the main reason why the per acre yield in this era is so tragic. The first item of intensive farming is deep plowing of the soil. Then the question comes, Roman is very curious, if the natural climate does not change drastically, the soil conditions do not become very extreme in a short period of time, and there is no sudden cooling phenomenon like the Little Ice Age, then why did this kind of light plow appear on this land? This thing is more like an alien object, and it does not conform to the objective law of development. It should not appear on this land. The natural conditions for its birth are not available here. Even if there is no farm tool like the iron plow, Roman can understand it, but since he has the ability to create, why didn't the person who invented this light plow directly invent the heavy plow? Chapter 16 Ruby. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman followed Lux to the blacksmith shop. The town of Stjur has a relatively comprehensive range of basic professions and can barely be self-sufficient, but many things still rely on imports. For example, iron ingots and iron blocks. Stjur town does not have independent metallurgical capabilities, which requires technical support and sufficient manpower, as well as the most important iron ore. According to Roman, the Grand Duke of the Split Armor can only smelt more than 300 tons of iron ingots a year. Iron is very scarce, and its value is naturally very high. The currency conversion in this era is very simple: 1 gold coin for 10 silver coins, 1 silver coin for 10 copper coins. 1 gold coin contains 2 grams or 3 grams of gold, and can only buy 30 to 50 kilograms of iron ingots. Its price fluctuations are mainly affected by the quality of the iron ingots, and sometimes you can't buy it even if you have money. Sufficiently high-quality iron ingots can even be sold at the price of 1 gold coin 20 kilograms, and those iron ingots with too many impurities are difficult to sell. Roman knows nothing about forging, but it doesn't matter. Isn't it just blacksmithing? You will learn it as you go along. Roman looked at the iron ingots that Lux had hoarded. The blacksmith uncle admitted that he bought low-quality iron ingots, the kind that could buy 51 kilograms for 1 gold coin, but it was enough to meet the basic requirements of the farmers in Siggy town for farm tools, and he couldn't be picky. Not long after, the carpenter from Siggy town also came. Roman said to the carpenter and blacksmith, "The heavy plow is of great importance. You must make it as soon as possible. I will ask more to send someone to assist you in forging." After the work is done, I will pay you an extra 2 silver coins, that is, half a plowing ox as a reward. There is no technical content in making plows. In simple terms, the plow is just a thick piece of iron, and it does not need to be finely processed. It only needs to be made into a general shape. Roman did not treat Lux as rudely and harshly as he treated the farmers. With only these two professionals, Roman could not find anyone to replace them, and the spring plowing is imminent, and the heavy plowing cannot be delayed. This means that they have to work overtime, and they have to get up and work after sleeping for a few hours at most. The work intensity is very high, so it is normal to give them some money. The two people had no resistance to this matter and were very obedient, but Lux said, "Master, we don't have enough iron ingots." Roman waved his hand. "Then I need at least 40 heavy plows to reforge the original plows in Siggy town. Those light plows are useless. The deep plowing of heavy plows has a great impact on grain production. More importantly, the land that originally needed to be plowed back and forth 2 or 3 times with light plows can only be plowed once with heavy plows. It is a bit slow, but the overall efficiency of plowing is improved." "Master, even this is not enough. Each light plow only has 9 or 10 kilograms of iron." Lux has basic arithmetic skills. There are more than 80 light plows in Siggy town. Counting the 7 damaged light plows, the total weight is only 900 kilograms at most. Moreover, the light plows will also have a lot of loss during the reforging process, and may even be scrapped. The utilization rate will definitely not exceed 60%, and the gap is too big. Even if only 40 heavy plows were cast, it would require more than 1,200 kilograms of iron. Roman was a little confused, not knowing whether to melt green steel sword and full body armor. The main function of the heavy plow is deep plowing. Although wood with only a layer of iron on the top can achieve a similar effect, its disadvantage is high wear rate. It will break when it hits a stone. Only pure iron plows with sufficient hardness and strength can turn the entire land. At this time, Lack said respectfully, "Master, there should be iron blocks on the merchant ship at the dock of Sig town. You can buy them from him." He chatted with the merchant named Mori and knew that the latter had iron on his ship. The mainstream of trade in this era was the business of salt, iron and cloth, but only merchants with status could do this kind of business. When Roman heard this, he immediately set off to the outside of Sig town. At the dock of the Bro River, he saw several merchant ships of Mori docked there from a distance. Mori also found that Roman came with a group of people and was immediately shocked. Could it be that the bad-tempered witch was caught by Roman and then sold out? At the critical moment, Mori's mind raced and he came up with 3 strategies. The best strategy was to kneel down and beg for mercy, saying that the witch had coerced him. The middle strategy was to buy his life and use the money to atone for his sins. The worst strategy was to act as if nothing had happened and never admit it. Mori sadly discovered that although the middle and upper strategies were the best in the local area, they were not necessarily the best in the global area. So he approached him nervously, pretending to be puzzled. After learning about Roman's intention, Mori's hanging heart was immediately put down and he wiped the sweat from his forehead. This action looked familiar to Roman. He quickly remembered the agricultural officer Moore. Because of his guilty conscience and kidney deficiency, that guy would sweat uncontrollably every time he saw him, as if he was afraid that he would put him in the pigpen. It was normal for Moore to have this problem, but why would this Mori feel guilty? However, Roman came to discuss business, not to ask questions. After asking, he learned that the last batch of goods on Mori's ship was exactly 450 kilograms of iron ingots, but these iron ingots were of high quality. 1 gold coin could only buy 30 kilograms of iron ingots, and it would take 15 gold coins to buy all of them. Roman frowned. He only had about 20 gold coins in cash now. He thought for 2 seconds and took out a bright red gem from his arms, which flashed a gorgeous and moving brilliance. "What is this?" Mori's pupils shrank. "Ruby, you should know its effect. It can make thin people strong. This quality of ruby should be worth 15 gold coins." Roman threw the ruby to Mori. This was the birth gift given to him by the Grand Duke of Split Armor when he was born. If it was given to an ordinary merchant, Roman would think that the other party could not keep such a treasure, but Mori, the son of a big merchant, would definitely be able to make use of its value, and Mori was shocked by Roman's decision. For those humans who are not extraordinary, Such gems are really extremely precious, which can nourish the body of the wearer, strengthen the physique, and help them become extraordinary as soon as possible. It's just that the process is long and the price is not expensive. Even a ruby with a higher purity is only worth 15 gold coins, and inferior goods are only worth a few gold coins. Generally speaking, not many people trade with gems, because it's better to pass it on to future generations. Some small nobles or impoverished knights would sell their fiefdoms to keep this kind of ancestral treasure, because maybe there will be another knight in the future. But Roman threw it out so easily. Mori was shocked, and then said solemnly, "Dear Lord, you are short of funds now, but I have no doubt about your ability to govern. This land has huge development potential. Please allow me to contribute a little to the construction of your territory and offer this 450 gene iron ingot in exchange for your friendship, and I will never accept this ruby." Mori held the ruby in both hands and handed it to Roman, and at this time he faintly smelled a bad smell. He originally thought it was the smell from the blacksmith and carpenter behind Roman, but when he got closer, he found that the smell came from Roman himself, as if this distinguished lord had fallen into a manure pit or played with manure for 2 hours, so Mori regretted it again, feeling a little unreliable. Chapter 17, Family Motto, Overcoming All Obstacles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman thought for a moment and took back the gem. He still has feelings for this ruby. After all, it has been a personal belonging since he was a child. If he didn't have money now, he wouldn't give it away. Sensibility is sensibility, rationality is rationality. In his opinion, rubies are just luxury goods. After becoming a transcendent, the effectiveness of rubies has been greatly reduced, so Roman will not refuse to exchange this thing for initial development resources. He said calmly, "I will not take anyone's benefits in vain, and I will return them to you in other forms in the future." Roman knew what Mori was thinking. A businessman pursues profit, so give him the profit. He does not agree to anyone investing in Siggy Town, nor does he accept the opportunity for anyone to kidnap him for a favor, but he will not refuse others' investment in him, especially when he is still weak. This is a matter of mutual benefit, and he also needs a capable businessman to help him sell the materials produced in Siggy Town in the future. Roman suddenly asked, "Are all your goods sold out?" Mori was stunned. He had temporarily settled here for 4 days. For a caravan, this was a long time, especially for a market town like Siggy Town, which is still very poor. All the trade that should be carried out was over. Even if these 7 or 8 merchant ships just stay here, the hidden costs are not small, but he can't leave now. He still has to wait for Shasta. He said he would wait for Shasta for 2 days. Today is the first day and tomorrow is the second day. So he is prepared to wait until the day after tomorrow. If he still sees Shasta, without Shasta's people, he really had to leave. Mori was hesitating now and couldn't find a good reason. He scolded Shasta in his heart. He had never seen such a bastard who deceived his teammates. Next time he lets a witch on his boat, he'll be a dog. Roman was keenly aware of Mori's expression of embarrassment. Roman was thoughtful and did not continue to ask. He just told Mori that Siggy Town still needed iron ingots and asked Mori to transport them as soon as possible. He would also exchange the corresponding supplies for the iron ingots. Steel is a hot commodity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sold to Sky Town. Therefore, Roman promised to waive Mori's business tax for the next 2 years. As long as Mori is willing to come, his benefits will be indispensable. In the eyes of true aristocrats, the status of merchants and farmers is similar, and the difference is nothing more than more wool and less wool. Therefore, some nobles are serious about commercial exploitation, and no businessman is willing to do business in that kind of place. In the future, Roman will give preferential treatment to businessmen in terms of commercial taxes to attract more businessmen to Siggy Town. The substantial tax exemption policy will be promoted in the future. Roman gestured and said to Mori, "I need a lot of cattle. Before the end of this spring, I need you to transport 100 cattle to Siggy Town. I will not treat you badly in terms of price. I will take out 60 gold coins to buy these 100 cattle, and you will bear the freight." Mori immediately shook his head. "I can't do it. Even if I send all the cattle I can buy in the Kant territory here, I still can't get 100. Kanda territory is the closest earldom to Siggy Town. They are hundreds of miles apart from each other. There are barren mountains and ridges in the middle. It is impossible to travel by land. Generally, water transport is used, although the current in Inlong Canyon is very fast and the rocks are dense, it is impossible for a large boat to sail. But it is not difficult to transport 100 cattle. It is simply that this number of cattle cannot be purchased in such a short period of time. Can draft horses be used? Although their physical fitness and endurance are not as good as those of cattle, and their prices are slightly more expensive than cattle, I can bring you 100 draft horses as soon as possible if you need them. Roman frowned slightly when he heard this. 100 cattle are worth 50 gold coins. Perhaps purchasing a large number will cause the price to rise, but it will not exceed 60 gold coins. 100 draft horses are very unstable and require him to pay 70 or 80 gold coins. If the price fluctuates slightly, it can soar to 90 gold coins. Roman had no choice. He didn't care whether he had money in his pocket or not, so he just said it. I want both plow oxen and draft horses. In the end, Mori promised to bring 50 cattle and 100 draft horses to Siggy town. After seeing Roman throwing the ruby to him, he no longer doubted whether the nobleman in front of him could afford the purchase cost. In front of him was a young nobleman who dared to exchange rubies for development resources. There is no doubt that this lord is ambitious and has the same huge development potential as this valley. This remote place will soon undergo dramatic changes, as long as you invest in advance. You will definitely not lose money in the future, but because of the bad-tempered Shasta, Mori felt that he was on Roman's suspicion list, which made him feel very depressed. Then, Roman, Lux, and Carpenter Vicky each carried a wooden box containing 150 kilograms of iron ingots and went to Siggy town. With this batch of high-quality iron ingots, the gap in steel has been barely filled. It was getting very late now, and the farmers had stopped working. Roman checked the progress of the work. Not satisfactory. Thanks to the massive labor force assembled, farmers were able to dispose of all the manure within 2 days. The technology tree has always been a strange thing. As long as a certain key technology point is unlocked, productivity can be greatly improved, and because it is simple to operate and easy to copy, it will quickly promote the progress of the entire civilization. But if there is not enough accumulation, or due to the influence of historical factors, it will not be unlocked, and the entire civilization will be stuck in place for thousands of years. Heavy plowing is such a critical technological point. Lux and Vicky had a heavy task burden and started working on it overnight. Roman did not join in. You can hit iron at any time, and you can gain skill experience points at any time. Not today. He needs to recharge his batteries. The businessman named Mori wanted him to go into the mountains for some reason, but he didn't mention it today. Roman thought again about the witch who suddenly appeared in Sig town. He felt it necessary to go and see what kind of secrets were hidden in those deep mountains. Roman spent 7 days upgrading his planting skill. It took another 2 days to integrate all the resources in Siggy town and launch standard methods such as mud and water screening, plow modification, and manure fermentation. Today is the 9th day since Roman came to Siggy town. Roman woke up at the crack of dawn and took out the giant bow he brought from the split armor family. The bow of this big bow is as red as blood, and the string is white and tough. It weighs between 150 and 200 pounds. The head and tail are inlaid with 2 large diamonds in the shape of pigeon eggs. To draw this kind of long bow, it is equivalent to lifting a weight of more than 100 kilograms with one hand, and if you want to draw it to full, it requires even more strength. The bow body is made of mahogany, which seems to be soaked in blood. Born in nature, mahogany is a special and extraordinary resource with tough material and a very long growth cycle. It is said to be dyed with dragon's blood, and its effect is to make those who hold it feel the power of courage and passion. It is said that even a weak person can become brave and fearless if he holds the branch of a redwood tree. The bow string is said to be tanned with the sinews of sea monsters using complex techniques. Therefore, it is extremely strong and terrifying and can withstand huge force. Even a sharp sword cannot cut it off in one go. 2 sparkling, high-quality diamonds are inlaid at both ends of the bow and arrow. This extraordinary resource will give the bow and arrows hard and indestructible power. Mahogany, sea monster sinew, and diamonds constitute the power of this extraordinary weapon. However, in Roman's opinion, it was just like that. Its penetration was probably at the level of a heavy sniper rifle, but its destructive power, range and accuracy were not as powerful as a sniper rifle. This is Roman's most precious weapon, worth at least 3 digits of gold coins, and countless nobles are flocking to it. However, this thing cannot be sold. It is said that it is an imitation of the weapon of the first generation of the armor-splitting Archduke. If rounded up, it is equal to a family heirloom. If the armor-splitting Archduke sees this thing on the market, shouldn't he be skinned alive? It had nothing to do with Roman, but before he left, Grand Duke Split Armor suddenly called him to the family's secret room, asked him to take down the big bow hanging on the wall, and told him the family motto of the Split Armor family: overcoming thorns and thorns. Chapter 18, Entering the Mountains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman changed into a hunting outfit that made it easier to move around, and his thick long hair that hung over his shoulders was tied up with a forehead wiper. His whole person had a feeling of freedom and wildness like a lion, and his face became more angular. Roman did not make Green and Aaron fully armored. Instead, he asked them to put on clothes that could move freely in the mountains, put on weapons, and asked Aaron to carry an iron shield on his back. Wait until the sun rises. More was waiting for Roman's fussing, or agricultural guidance, in Sig Town today. As a result, he saw Roman coming on horseback, carrying a big bow and dressed neatly. He heard Roman say, "Call the guards from Siggy Town. I want to take people into the mountain." Ah. Maul looked at Roman blankly, his mind full of confusion. "No. Master, why didn't you tell me in advance?" Roman frowned. "What did I tell you to do?" Yeah, tell me what to do. Can I still stop him? This is really an ancestor who suffered from the plague. Moore was very anxious and had to remind, "Those people are very dangerous." Roman narrowed his eyes. "Oh. So I want to let them do whatever they want on my territory." Moore was about to cry but had no tears. At this moment, he really liked this overbearing lord who had his own way of doing things. Roman clearly saw the struggling expression flashing on Maul's face. Before that, no matter how bizarre and ridiculous things he did, Maul would only accept it silently, as if it was nothing more than a broken jar, as if he only wanted to avoid being demoted. Just go to the pig pen. Only in this matter did Moore show considerable rejection, so Roman took Maul with him. When he announced this, Moore was petrified, his eyes were ashen, as if he had accepted his fate. There were 30 guards in Siggy Town. Roman only called away 20 guards and brought enough supplies to reserve 10 guards for Siggy Town. Today's production task is to replicate what was done yesterday, and the supervisors in Siggy Town are qualified supervisors. Roman first asked them whether they had relevant experience and how familiar they were with the conditions in the mountains. The probability of something happening to him and Green Aaron is very low, but that doesn't mean the guards also have extraordinary physiques. The probability of injury and death is high, according to the results of the inquiry. As long as they are careful, nothing will happen. Long before Roman came here, residents here would also go into the mountains or forests to collect wood. This is also Roman's greatest means of aristocratic oppression of all residents of Siggy Town, although Roman is just looking for a reason. After training the farmer's instinct of obedience to him, Roman will open up the cutting rights for a period of time. He really doesn't think these people can cause any waste to natural resources. Farmers have no axes or hatchets, only simple wooden tools, and can only rely on their hands to fight against nature. This efficiency is naturally extremely low. The traces that were mined this year were covered by nature's metabolism the next year. When Roman finds a suitable iron ore and smelts the metal to make sharp axes and machetes, he will personally tell them what efficiency is. Breaking wood with a rock. No. Here, use this. Pass the axe and saw. JPG, but before that, Roman still needs to conduct basic surveys here to find veins suitable for mining. Most of Roman's territory is unexplored, otherwise known as the wilderness, although the total planting area of Siggy Town is probably tens of thousands of acres of land, but this is still a very small part of the entire basin. This is a very common thing in this era. The land is vast and sparsely populated, the nature is dangerous, and wild beasts roam. Wild. It is a very difficult thing to open up the wilderness. The conqueror emperor more than 100 years ago, in his capacity as the uncrowned king, issued a law: any pioneer becomes the owner of the pioneer land and is granted the status and title of pioneer lord. This vigorous pioneering movement that lasted for nearly 20 years, a movement that was a shining point for the entire human civilization, ended when the conqueror became seriously ill in the Hades Sea, and his huge fleet was also hit by a storm, so the people died and the government ceased. Without the powerful suppression of the conquerors, the nobles and other kingdoms began to jump up and down, and in a very short period of time, they incorporated into their own territory the hard work of the common people. In the past 20 years, those who voluntarily pioneered were often people with nothing. They lacked the knowledge and force to resist. It wasn't until the 3 archdukes led the remaining troops back from the Sea of Hell that the chaos of dividing the cake finally settled down, but the impact of this incident was extremely far-reaching. For example, countries no longer carry out proactive land reclamation activities, but rely on the speed of natural population reproduction to slowly expand human activity space. Moreover, the cultivated land is enough for everyone to fight each other on this land and consume the population, so there is no need to continue to expand outwards. Siggy Town is experiencing this kind of passive development. It has slowly grown from a population of a few hundred to its current size, with tens of thousands of acres of wasteland reclaimed. Roman didn't bother to comment on this matter. He focused part of his attention on the interface of life story. Life story will treat his territory as the origin farm, but the map is vast, and it depends on his own actions to slowly light up all the maps. During this lighting process, various geographical information such as logging areas, quarrying areas, mining areas, hunting areas, swamps, rivers, wastelands, etc. will be marked. In short, as long as Roman passes by, he will know where there are mines, which is similar to a vision map of all resources. However, this vision is only for specific resources, not real-time satellite monitoring. Moreover, Roman has tried it. Story of life cannot affect the real world. Even because the arable land in Siggy Town is not cultivated by Roman, Story of Life does not regard those thousands of acres of land as farmland. Only the land reclaimed by Roman will be regarded as farmland. Of course, this function of surveying resources still saves Roman a lot of effort. As long as there is a mineral vein nearby, its specific location can be marked, eliminating the time of surveying. More said earnestly, Master Roman, there are only desperate criminals in the mountains. You don't need to take risks yourself. Your safety is the most important. Roman said, if there is someone in the mountains who can kill all the guards and 2 knights, then let him kill me. He answered easily and calmly, but it did not prevent Moore from sweating profusely. The mountain road is difficult to walk. He weighs nearly 200 kilograms and is quite unable to bear this kind of aerobic exercise. Roman said, okay, you can talk about the people in the mountains. Moore clearly knows something. Moore wiped his sweat and had to cooperate and said, I don't know much. Some of them have lived here for a long time. They lived here before my father died of illness and when I was not an agricultural official. Ferocious monsters, dangerous environment, and some extremely dangerous thieves and wanted criminals. This is also the reason why Moore refused to come to the depths of the mountains, because if he is not careful, he will really lose his life. Chapter 19. I have the right to take charge of everything. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman had heard Maul talk about it before, but didn't understand it deeply. The betrayal knight, the weird doctor, the legendary thief, the deserter on the battlefield, these people are far more dangerous than hunters. They are basically wanted criminals. Otherwise, how could they escape to this remote country? Moore still adheres to the principle of, don't offend the river. Roman frowned and said, there are no witches in the mountains. Moore was surprised, I have never heard of it. Mr. Roman, do you think that witch is looking for a companion? He thought of the strange figure that was witnessed the night before. Roman only had suspicions and no evidence. The biggest obstacles to traveling in the mountains are the precipitous terrain, fast-flowing streams, and huge differences between the top and bottom, making it difficult to pass. But that doesn't mean there are no shortcuts. There are no roads in the world, but the more you walk, the more roads you will find. Don't think of hunters as gods who come and go without a trace in the mountains. If you want to live for a long time, you must have a fixed residence and exchange supplies with Siggy Town in exchange for necessary supplies. If you have a fixed residence, you have a fixed route. Over time, the people of Siggy town knew that the camp of this group of hunters was very reasonable. Roman and others followed this road to the settlement of mountain people and hunters. Farming is also required in the mountains, by spreading seeds in the cracks between rocks or cultivating small pieces of flat land, but it is unreasonable to farm on his land and not give him a dock. Before arriving at the hunter's residence, Roman suddenly frowned, and there was some kind of premonition coming from the mountain forest at an angle. He is a practicing archer and is very skilled. When he is pointed by an arrow, he will feel some kind of premonition. If you switch to a sniper rifle, the effect will be even greater. Aaron also discovered something strange. There were unnatural commotions in the forests and shrubs in some places. Aaron noticed someone trying to surround them from behind, took off his buckler, stood firm, and stood on Roman's left side. Green's eyes also became sharp. He pulled out a steel sword mixed with orichalcum and stood back to back with Roman, forming a triangle position. Seeing the reaction of the two men, the guards hesitated and nervously formed their formation. "Do you want to be the enemy of your lord?" Roman said loudly. A word came from the mountain forest, "We have no lord." Roman said calmly, "Now you have it." Crunched at the sound of the bowstring tightening sounded one after another in this silent mountain forest. The two sides became tense. Roman did not take out his weapon. He said calmly, "Do you want to fight against the knights? You can't do it. Now come out and kneel in front of me. I will forgive you." There was silence. Roman and Green and other extraordinary beings with keen ears could vaguely hear the whispers coming from the forest. The hunters were talking about it, but it was obvious that someone had a different opinion, so it was more like an argument. After a while, a young hunter came out of the forest. "We just want a way to survive. If you are willing not to disturb our lives, we can contribute the prey we hunt to you in the future." The hunter was about to make a condition when he saw Roman looking at him with a surprised look and a strange expression on his face. His heart suddenly sank, and he felt that something bad might be going on, but he heard Roman say, "Then you will be loyal to me." The hunter's brain was a little down. Roman snorted, "In this land, I have the right to dominate everything. Everyone is my subject. Say your name, my apostle." "Do. Dota Gurney. 2-star multiple towers, attack, E+, defense, E, speed, E+, constitution, E+, energy, E. Talent, eyesight, improved observation of the environment, skill 1, tracking, capture clues and deduce the movements of the trace maker. On the day you recruit the apostles, other modes in Noah's Ark are unlocked, for example, battlefield simulation, dispatch operation, integrated operation, apostle battle group, destiny expedition, etc. But it's of no use to him now. Combat and enough apostle units are required to use those features. Roman hummed softly, "Take me to find other people in the mountain. All of them. I will decide whether to make them loyal to me based on their performance." In fact, every adult farmer in Siggy town is familiar with the mountains. In some famine years, when food was not enough, farmers in Siggy town relied on gathering and hunting to get through those difficult years, not to mention that mountains and forests are where wood fuel is obtained. However, due to barbarism and ignorance, many people only dare to explore on the edge. Even experienced hunters dare not go deep into it. It is said that the mountain can eat people and has ferocious monsters. All Shasta saw were trees, mountains, and rocks. She couldn't help but sigh. The mountain is not high, but the forest is very dense and the trees grow wildly. Narrow, enclosed spaces can feel depressing. She knew why there was a saying that mountains can eat people. No matter where humans go in the dangerous mountains, they seem to have slipped into the mouth of a giant beast and disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye. Shasta gets a clue about the witch of Sigtown. She followed the woman's instructions, took a cloth bag with 2 pounds of peas in it, and explored up a stream. Finally, she found the huge, crooked-necked dwarf chestnut tree in the complex terrain of the mountain. It has lush branches, like a huge afro. Because the temperature has risen, the dense and numerous branches have also sprouted green buds, dyed with some spring colors. There are as many dwarf chestnut trees as there are in this forest, but there are very few of its kind as thick and twisted as this one. It grows by the stream, and its twisted upper body looks like it is about to dip into the water to wash its hair. Its branches hang down and touch the surface of the river. Shasta tied the bag of peas under the branches of the dwarf chestnut tree, and she hid somewhere higher. She spent the first day without seeing anyone, so she had to sleep in the forest. The early spring was very cold, and the temperature in the mountains was even lower. Fortunately, she was a witch, not an ordinary person, so she could protect herself for a short time. On the second day, Shasta finally saw a ragged thin figure. The man stood under the dwarf chestnut tree, tiptoed to take the cloth bag, and lifted his tattered clothes like an apron, pouring the beans inside into it. Then she looked around, lowered her head, and left quickly. Seeing this, Shasta immediately followed. She followed the child to her residence, which was a shack made of leaves and branches, which could only shelter from the wind and rain. This surprised Shasta a little. Even the simplest shelter could not be built by a child. Maybe someone helped her. This is also normal. If no one helped her, a child could not live alone in the mountains for more than a year. Shasta felt sad, and she appeared in front of Gwyler. Gwyler jumped up in fright, and all the peas in her arms fell out. Her dirty little face looked at the beautiful woman in front of her in horror. I am Shasta, Gwyler, don't be afraid, we are companions. Shasta released a faint black smoke from his body. Are you a witch? Gwyler said in shock. She took a step back, unbelievable, as if she had seen something horrible. You are also a witch. Gwyler cried and said forcefully, No, I am not. Do you want to deny your power? Or do you want to deny yourself? Gwyler shook her head and cried, I don't have evil power, I am not possessed by the devil, don't come to me. Gwyler staggered back, as if she was about to turn around and run away. Shasta had a strong reaction. She immediately rushed over and hugged her in her arms, because she was afraid that she would lose control. At the same time, she comforted her and said, Good child, I know you are very scared, but you don't have to be afraid. I will take you away. You will eat bread and oatmeal every day and you will be full. You can sleep well on the soft bed without worrying about being exposed to wind and rain. My sister, I will not let others hurt you again. We were born in this land not just to suffer, and we should not be burned to death after awakening. Chapter 20 The Thief and the Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The hunters couldn't muster the courage to fight with the Lord, and their combatants totaled only a dozen people, and there are more than this number of guards in Siggy town. The hunter hopes to use force to intimidate the Lord, express his attitude, and make the latter retreat in spite of difficulties. As long as the lords dare not enter the mountains, they can still maintain their old life, but Roman was tough. The hunter had to surrender, because he doesn't even need to send troops to attack the hunters. He only needs to seal off the mountains and cut off all exchanges between Siggy town and the hunters' quality of life will plummet. In this era, it is difficult to meet all the needs of life by simply hunting. In the cottages opened by hunters in the mountains, they also carry out multiple harvesting methods such as picking berries, mushrooms, farming, and hunting. They regularly send furs, mountain products, game, etc. to Siggy town, or find merchants, and then exchange them for grain, cloth, and ironware and transport them to the mountains. More, as agricultural officer, had no way of taxing them. Hunters rely on the resources of the mountains, and their quality of life is much higher than that of farmers in Siggy town. The land in the mountains cannot grow much food, but they don't have to take away 50% of the harvest from more, so they basically have no worries about food and clothing. This kind of life can basically be called a comfortable life. The resources consumed by the hunters are only a very small part of Maul's life, so there is no need for him to take the risk of fighting with the hunters. Otherwise, no matter who wins, it will be a lose-lose situation. Now, a lord and two well-trained war knights have completely changed this situation. Roman asked all hunters to withdraw from the village within a month and move to Siggy town. This requirement puts hunters in a difficult position. Roman didn't care about their feelings. The resources in the mountains could only support the dozens of people in the village. After moving out, the wealth created by these people would increase dozens of times. He then needed a large population and was even prepared to buy slaves. Then, Roman asked Dog about the specific situation of the bandits in the mountains. Compared to Moore, he had lived in the mountains since he was a child and knew the situation of those people better. Hunters are hunters, and dangerous thugs basically have their own separate residences. It's just that after living for a long time, we will naturally have contact and know some basic information about each other, due to news congestion, long distances and Moore's failure to report. The true identities of these people have not been disclosed to the outside world. The residents of Siggy Town rarely encounter those dangerous elements. Dog didn't hide anything. He said directly, "The dirty doctor's name is Gallon. We hunters and people in Sig Town respect him very much. He knows knowledge and can cure diseases, but no one knows his origin. Jet, a deserter on the battlefield, came here because he had nowhere to go because he fled the battlefield without permission. The traitorous knight Dick. It is said that he killed the nobles he was loyal to. He was wanted by the nobles and somehow ended up wandering here. The thief Borg, you should have heard of him. He also killed a noble, stole all the wealth of that noble, and distributed them to the civilians. But after he left, those civilians where a nobleman has all been pushed to the gallows. You'd better not come into contact with the thief Borg, because he is very dangerous." At this time, deep in the mountains, there was a faint roar of a beast, interrupting Duoda's words. Warcraft. Duoda looked solemnly, looking in the direction of the mountains. The powerful beast is the Warcraft, because this kind of beast has terrible destructive power. In the forests and mountains, it is simply the incarnation of nature. Once encountering a monster, even a group of hunters will suffer heavy casualties, but correspondingly, the monster will bleed or be seriously injured. This is a conflict that both strive to avoid. This powerful beast rarely attacks human settlements. Of course, there are certain omnivores that can destroy crops and fields. Although humans have invaded a part of nature, they have not pushed the Warcraft into a corner. They still have a large living space in this wild land, and this is the periphery of the mountains, and the Warcraft has a fixed territory. Duoda felt a little uneasy when he heard the roar. Roman also frowned, and then continued to ask, "Where is the other one? There should be more than just these people." Hearing Roman's question, Duoda hesitated. He didn't really want to say it, but Roman looked directly at him. He was an archer, his eyes were very cohesive and had a sense of oppression, which made Doda a little nervous. "The last one is Gwir, the Witch of Doom." Unknown time, the thief Borg found the traitorous knight Dick. The difficulty of living alone in the mountains is unimaginable for ordinary people, and extraordinary people cannot get a stable enough source of food. Even so, they still hide in this mountain forest far away from the world, living in isolation and refusing to go out. Dick was once a powerful war knight who had a fiefdom given to him by the nobles until he killed his lord. From that moment on, there was no place for Dick in this land. Borg came to Dick's cabin and said to Dick, "An evil dragon has entered the mountain." Dick just looked at him. Borg said to himself, "That evil dragon shouldn't be here. Why should it disturb the peace here?" Dick was silent. Borg's voice became more and more fierce. "He will not let us stay here. The evil dragon will send his minions to capture us. Those weak hunters will not resist, but will only increase the arrogance of the evil dragon. When the time comes, you, me, Jet, and the dirty doctor can no longer stay here. And that unfortunate little witch will be sold to the church. Dick, can you bear to see that little witch burned alive?" Dick finally spoke. "Why did you come to me?" Borg's expression was ferocious. "Let him die a violent death before he destroys the peace here." Dick sighed. "Your madness is increasing day by day in the mountains. Your imagination will lead to your own destruction." Borg said to himself, "Dick, let's do this together. Only in this way can we protect this only pure land. The noble will regard everything here as his treasure, and those treasures do not belong to him. He's just a plunderer and a robber. He doesn't deserve these things." Dick shook his head and said, "I won't help you." Borg didn't seem to hear anything. He said frantically, "Let's go and kill the evil dragon. I will make him bleed and see if the blood is red. Then I will share the dragon's treasure with everyone." Dick sighed again. "Why didn't you go to Jet instead of me?" Borg stared at Dick. But the latter was not afraid of the crazy thief. Dick heard Borg say, "That deserter is a coward, he won't support me." Dick said, "No, Jet is very brave. He knew exactly what he was doing, so he chose to come to the mountains." "Berg, go away, I will not join forces with you. Borg suddenly became furious. We all have the blood of the dragon on our hands. I fight for everyone on this land, but you stand idly by. Dick sighed. Who are you fighting for? Are you going to kill Roman armor? Or are you going to kill the shadow that has been lingering on you? You can't get rid of it. You often dream about that group of people. The person who died tragically. You feel like you strangled your mother to death with your own hands. You can't sleep peacefully, you often wake up with nightmares in the middle of the night, and you wake me up many times. Dick looked at his neighbor with pity in his eyes. Robin Borg, you have gone crazy a long time ago. Borg said with certainty, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm going to do. Dick said, so what do you want to do? Borg said coldly, Warcraft riot. Nobles died tragically. Dick shook his head. Do you think you can easily kill the heirs of the split armor family? Even if you can, the anger of the split armor archduke will destroy Siggy town. Borg, you are repeating the same mistakes, and everyone will be killed by you. And where are you going to escape this time? Borg muttered, No. No. I won't run away anymore. I finally figured it out. I want to kill Roman Cracker and the fat pig in Sig town. I want the evil dragon's food. The gold coins will be distributed to the poor who cannot afford to eat. I will also distribute the land in Siggy town to them. As long as they become the owners of this land, they will follow me to kill other evil dragons. All the evil dragons on the earth. As long as all those evil dragons are dead, everything will be fine. Dick still shook his head. Borg's crazy expression suddenly calmed down. He looked at Dick, waiting for his final response, and Dick silently held the rusty knight's sword. Borg turned and walked away. Dick looked at Borg's leaving figure and remained silent. Dick knew that no one could persuade a thief, especially when his heart was full of crazy ideas. He slowly took out a black and silver necklace from his arms, stared at it for a moment, and finally held it in his hand and sighed.